Ethan never planned to sit at that table. The restaurant glowed warm against the cold evening outside, candles flickering like tiny promises, soft music drifting between clinking glasses and low laughter. His brother Mark had begged him, voice strained, embarrassed, to take his place just this once. "I can't do it," Mark had said. "I panicked. She's already there. Just show up, explain, leave if you want." Ethan almost refused. He was a single dad, exhausted from long shifts and longer nights. His life narrowed to school pickups, bedtime stories, and memories of a woman who never came back. Blind dates belonged to another version of himself, one that had time, hope, and energy. But then he looked at his sleeping daughter, her small hand curled around a stuffed bear, and something in him softened. Maybe it was habit. Maybe love had taught him to step in when someone else couldn't. So he went. She was already seated. Clara. That was the name Mark had shown him. She sat straight-backed, hands folded around a mug she hadn't touched, eyes calm but alert, as if she were listening for something deeper than music. When Ethan introduced himself, apologizing and explaining the switch, he expected annoyance, maybe polite disappointment. Instead, she smiled, not wide, not forced, just enough to say she understood more than he'd explained. "It's okay," she said quietly. "Life happens." They ordered anyway. He planned to leave early, but conversation found its own rhythm. She spoke gently, choosing words like they mattered. She asked about his work, his daughter, not with curiosity but care. And then, halfway through dessert, she asked the question that shifted the air between them. "Do you still believe people arrive where they're meant to, even when plans go wrong?" Ethan froze. No one asked him questions like that anymore. Not the practical ones. Not the tired single dad questions. He searched her face for irony but found none. Only sincerity. He answered honestly, voice low. "I didn't. Not after my wife left. Not after everything felt like it collapsed. But tonight, maybe." Clara nodded, as if that answer mattered deeply, as if it confirmed something she'd been wondering. When the bill came, Ethan insisted on paying, apologizing again for the confusion. She stopped him gently. "I didn't come here for who I thought you were," she said. "I came to meet whoever showed up." Outside, the night felt different, less heavy. As they parted, she asked one last thing. "Would it be strange if I hoped this wasn't the end?" Ethan didn't answer right away. He just smiled. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he was standing in the wrong place. And as he walked to his car, phone buzzing with Mark's nervous messages, Ethan realized something unsettling and beautiful. Sometimes the wrong seat leads you to the right moment. If this story already has you hooked, don't forget to subscribe, because moments like this are only the beginning. Ethan tried to forget her. He told himself it was just a pleasant accident, a borrowed evening, nothing more. But Clara's question followed him into quiet moments, while packing lunches, folding laundry, sitting alone after his daughter fell asleep. "Do you believe people arrive where they're meant to?" It echoed differently now, less like philosophy and more like an invitation. Days later, she texted. Simple. Honest. "I don't usually do this, but I'd like to see you again." No confusion this time. He stared at the screen longer than he should have, heart pounding like it hadn't in years. He said yes. Their second meeting was quieter. A walk through a park, autumn leaves crunching underfoot, conversations unfolding without pressure. Clara spoke about her past. A fiancé who chose ambition over honesty. A life she'd rebuilt carefully, brick by brick. Ethan spoke about grief, not just losing his wife, but losing the version of himself that believed love stayed. Clara listened, truly listened. Then she asked another quiet question, softer than the first but heavier. "Are you afraid to be chosen again? or afraid you won't be? Ethan stopped walking. No one had ever named it before. He swallowed hard. Both, he admitted. Over time, Clara met his daughter, not dramatically, not suddenly. Slowly, with patience. She sat on the floor, coloring, asking permission before entering their small, carefully protected world. One night, after tucking his daughter in, Ethan found Clara standing by the window. "She trusts me," Clara said softly, almost surprised. "That matters." That night, Ethan realized the quiet questions weren't tests. They were bridges. Clara wasn't trying to change him. She was trying to understand whether he was ready to stand where he was again. Mark eventually confessed guilt, expecting anger. Ethan surprised them both. "If you hadn't stepped back," he said, "I wouldn't have stepped forward." Months later, Ethan and Clara sat in the same restaurant where it began. Same table, same candlelight. This time, no confusion. Clara reached across the table, fingers brushing his. "Do you still think people end up where they're meant to?" she asked. Ethan smiled, eyes steady. "I think sometimes they have to be brave enough to sit in the wrong seat first." Outside, the night felt warm, familiar, full of promise. And as Ethan drove home, Clara beside him, future unfolding quietly, he understood something simple and profound. Love doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it whispers a question and waits for you to answer. Happiness didn't arrive all at once. It arrived quietly, like Clara had. It showed up in small routines Ethan didn't realize he'd been missing until they were there. Shared coffee in the early mornings while his daughter slept. Texts that didn't demand answers but offered presence. Laughter that felt unfamiliar because it wasn't followed by fear. For the first time since becoming a single dad, Ethan wasn't just surviving, he was living. And that terrified him more than loneliness ever had. The fear crept in slowly. On good days, Ethan caught himself waiting for something to break. On bad days, he convinced himself it already had, and he just hadn't noticed yet. Clara sensed it before he said anything. She always did. One evening, as they sat on the couch after his daughter fell asleep, Clara noticed his distance. She didn't accuse him. She didn't push. She simply asked, "Where did you go just now?" Ethan stared at his hands. "Somewhere I don't want to be," he admitted. That was the moment the past finally caught up. Ethan told her everything. About the night his wife left. About how love hadn't ended in a fight or betrayal, but in quiet abandonment. About how waking up every day afterward felt like standing on broken glass while pretending nothing hurt. "I don't know how to promise forever anymore," he said, voice cracking. "I don't know if I'm capable of it." Clara listened without interrupting, eyes glossy but steady. When he finished, she took a breath and asked the question that changed everything again. "Ethan, if you never promise forever, does that mean you won't choose today?" He looked at her, stunned. She wasn't asking for vows. She wasn't asking for guarantees. She was asking for presence. Choice. Courage. "I'm not afraid of loving you," she continued softly. "I'm afraid you'll keep waiting for the moment I leave instead of seeing that I'm still here." That night, Ethan didn't have a perfect answer. But for the first time, he didn't retreat either. He reached for her hand and stayed. Weeks later, life tested them. His daughter's school called, an incident small but emotional. Clara arrived without being asked, sat beside Ethan in the principal's office, offered support without trying to replace anyone. On the drive home, his daughter spoke from the back seat, voice small but certain. "I like Clara. She doesn't disappear." Ethan swallowed hard. Children saw truths adults avoided. That night, after bedtime, Ethan stood in the doorway of Clara's apartment, rain falling softly behind him. He was shaking not from cold but from decision. "I don't know how this ends," he said honestly. But I know I don't want to live my life protecting myself from happiness anymore. Clara smiled, not triumphant, not relieved, just grateful. That's all I ever wanted, she replied. For you to show up. Months later, Ethan realized something profound. Love didn't break him before, fear did. And fear only wins when you let it decide for you. One evening, as they sat together watching his daughter sleep peacefully between them during a movie night, Clara rested her head on his shoulder. You know, she said quietly, you didn't just take your brother's place on a blind date. You stepped into your own life. Ethan smiled, heart full. And you didn't just ask quiet questions, he replied. You taught me how to answer them. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive with certainty. Sometimes it arrives with a question and waits to see if you're brave enough to respond. If this chapter touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Stories like this remind us that healing, hope, and love are never too late, and the next one might be waiting for you.